All right, let's see if testing to see if things working again. Okay. All right, so let's continue with the same uh, topic, the TEAC 7.48. We're talking about constant rate of change. Sorry, that's my track of thought there. Constant rate of change. Okay. So we want a constant rate of change of 2. All you have to do is look at the graphs. Which one is going by 2? In other words, your rate of change has to be 2 or 2 over 1. So think, which one has a constant rate of 2 over 1? Now, this means a constant rate of change means change in y over change in x. Okay. In other words, the rate of change is like in a graph. I know you haven't been introduced to it, but it's like the slope of a line. And so we'll be talking more about the slope. But all you have to do is think about the constant rate of change. Okay, let's look at the first one here. What point is this? Well, that's 2 and 2. So 2 and 2. Next one is 3 and 3. Okay, and the next one is 4 and 4. And so you got to think there. Okay, is my change, let's look at the y's. This is your x variable, this is your y variable. Is my y's, they're changing by, well, from 2 to 3 to 4, it's going by 1s. And my x's are going also by 1. So that means my rate of change, or my change in y over change in x, is actually 1 over 1. Because my y's were going by 1. My x's were going by 1. So my rate of change is 1 over 1. Well, I don't want 1 over 1. I want 2 over 1. So then A would not give me that answer choice. So look at another one. Let's look at what is it, B. Let's look at the first point. Okay, the first point is 2, 1. Well, I'll put it here. 2, 1. Second point, 4, 2. Next point, 6, 3. Okay, and so I look at the change. Well, how much is it going by? And I can see there that this going, the y's are going by 1. Because remember, this is your x variable, this is your y variable. And the x's are going by 2. And so I think that, okay, the y's are going by 1, the x's are going by 2. Well, my rate of change is the change in the y's over the change in the x has to be 2 over 1, or 2. So then I have to say, okay, my change in the y's here is 1, and the change in the x was 2. So this here is not the same as this. So that's not my answer. And so I look at the next one with letter D. I'll do letter D. Okay? And so I look at my points there. Just look at the first one. 1, 1, 2. So I'll put there 1, 2. Next point is 3, 4. And then it's, I'm sorry, 2, 4, my fault. 2, 4, my fault. It's 2, 4. And then it's 3, 6. And so I look at my, this is my x variable, this is my y variable. And so I'm looking at, okay, how much is the y's changing? Well, from 2 to 4 is 2. From 4 to 6 is 2. My x's are going by 1. And so my rate of change is my change in the y over change in the x. Well, my y's are changing by 2. And my x's are changing by 1. And so this is the same as this. Or this. And so that's the answer that I'm going to put. Okay, because the rate of change is the same in these points. And later on we'll talk about slope and how you see how it's related to the rate of change. Okay. Number 2 there. On a map, 2 cities are 4.5 inches apart. On a map. So on a map, 4.5 inches apart. The map scale, 1 inch equals 20 miles. So what is the actual distance? Well, they're 4.5 inches apart. That means on a map they're 4.5 inches. 1 inch is 20 miles. Well, that means if you have 1 inch equals 20 miles, and you have 4.5 inches, well, how many miles do you have? Well, 1 inch is this. Well, you have 4.5 of these. 4.5 inches, that means you have 4.5 of these. So all you got to do is multiply 4.5 times 20, and you'll get your answer. Number 3. The Thomas family drove 364 miles in 6.5 hours. At this rate, how many miles would they drive in 8 miles? Well, first of all, there's a few ways to answer this problem. You can set up a proportion and solve it, or you can find out how much they do in miles per hour. In other words, for 1 hour. So all you would have to do is 364 miles in 6.5 hours. Divide that to find out how much they do in 1 hour. So you would use TiVo, top and bottom out. So 364 divided by 6.5. Okay. In your divisor, you cannot have a decimal, so you gotta move this guy to the front. And the decimal is always on the outside, on the right side, never over here, because that makes it less than the whole number. And so now you have this. Once you divide this, then what would you do next? Well, once you find it for 1, you can find out for 8. Because if you know 1 hour, well, you can find out how much you do in 8 hours. But first you have to divide this. This will actually be 364 it gives you what this is what 5 65 65 times 5 is 325. Okay, so this would be a 5. You subtract there, you have to regroup. Is that 39? And the 0 down. 650 into 390. 650. 65 into 390 is 6. And so that means that they do 56 miles in 1 hour. Okay, so 56 miles in 1 hour. Well, how much would they do in 8 hours? So 56 in 56 miles in 1 hour. Well, how much would you do in 8 hours? So 8 hours, how many would you do? You can solve it. Okay. A relationship between, number 4, a relationship between x and y has a constant rate of change of 4. So that means that the constant rate of change is 4. Well, constant rate of change, that means that can be expressed in fraction by 4 over 1. I'll put it over on the side. 4 over 1. That means my rate of change is the change in the y over the change in the x. That means the 4 is my y and the 1 is my x. And they're both positive because this was positive 4. And I only wrote this whole number as a fraction because we're talking about rate of change. Later on, when we hear the word slope, you'll see why we write it as a fraction form. Okay, so the rate of change is 4 over 1. So that means the 4 is the change in the y's, the 1 is the change in the x's. So you look at the statement, a constant rate of change of 4 means x value increases by 1. Okay, so x value increases by 1. That's true, by 1. Then the y value increases 4 units. Okay, so a constant rate of 4 means the x value increases by 1. We said that's true. Then the y value increases by 4. Well, there's a 4 there. So that means it is true. It's increased, the x is going by 1 and the y is going up by 4. So this would be the one I would use. Now the reason it's not G, let's check. A constant rate of 4 means the x value increases by 4. You see this contradicts our rate of change. X is going by 1, and they're saying X is increasing by 4. That's why that's wrong. H, if the X value is 4, again, the X value is not 4, because we said the X value is 1. And then the next one, X value is 4, again, look, it contradicts our rate of change, it has to be 1. And so that's why the answer was F. Number 5, you're looking at this step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. Okay, look for the pattern. Okay, what is the constant rate of change? In other words, what is the pattern? Okay, what is the pattern? Look at how many circles are being added every single step that we take, and then you can see the answer. Okay, number let's see, I'm gonna go to number, there's only a few more I'm gonna do. Number 7. Okay, so your rate of change is 3/2. That means your change in the y over the change in the x is that 3/2. So what you can do is you can find a pattern in these. For example, let's look at the A. How much of the x is going by? Well, 2, 4, 6, 8, they're going up by 2. Okay, my x is going up by 2. Okay, I want an x by 2, so that's good, because I want the change to be x to be 2, and so the change in the x's is 2. But then over here, let's look at the y's. 3.5 plus what gives you 5.5? Well, 3.5 plus 2. 5.5 plus 2, so that means my y's are also going up by 2. Well, I don't want my rate of change to be 2. I want the change in the y's to be 3. So this is not going to give me the answer. So let's look at B now. B, from 12 to 3 is what, 9? Oh, negative 9? Okay. And then from negative 9. And then from 8 to 2 is what, negative 6? Okay. And so now from 3 to 6, 3 to 9 is 6. And from 2 to 6 is 4. Okay. And from 9 to 15 is 6, and then from 6 to 10 is 4. Okay. Now here we got 6 and 6, 4 and 4. Here we got 9 and 6. Now we didn't see the pattern right away, but there's a pattern here. You just gotta remember they probably skipped a few numbers, and that's why you can't see it right away. But let's look at the first one, negative 9 and 6. Well, negative divided by sorry, I put it the wrong way. Okay, think of the change in the y's over the change in the x's. Okay, is the change in the x here? This is the change in the y's. Okay, and so now think there. Is it going to show up like this? Is it going to come down to this? Well, let's find out. Y over x, that means the change was negative 6 here. I'll put negative 6 over the change in the y was negative 9. Okay, if I simplify that, that's negative divided by negative is positive. So that's going to be a positive. Now I'm going to simplify by 3. That gives me positive 2 over 3. Okay, is this the same as this? And you can see that it's not. 2 over 3 is the same as 3 over 2. I can pick these two also. Look, change in the y's was 4, change in the x was 6. If I simplify this by 2, I still get 2 over 3, which is not this. So now I'm going to try C now. Okay, let's look for the pattern here. Okay, this is going down by negative 6. Okay, this is also going down by, but this time it's negative 9. This one is going up by 4, and this one is going up by 6. Okay, and so let's look at these first two. Okay, and so if it's changing y, well, this one changed negative 9 over the x, which is negative 6, and this other one changed 6 in the y's. The rate of change was 6, and the change in the y's was 4, and the change in the x was 4. So the change in the y was 6, and the change in the x was 4. If I simplify these, I can simplify this by 3, and I know negative divided by negative is positive, so this would be 3 over 2, okay, which is what I wanted to get. If I simplify this by 2, I get 3 over 2. And so that means that they both of these ratios simplify to the common rate that we want, which is 3 over 2, which is what we want here. And so my answer would be C. Number 8, all you got to do is, okay, constant rate of change. One of these numbers you can plug in here, and it'll keep things in order, like from 2 to 3 is 1. From 12 to one of these will keep this in a pattern going. You got to figure out which of those would go there. Okay, that's what you got to figure out. And it has to give you a constant rate of 6. Okay, in other words, let's say you get 2 and 12, and then you put 3 and 9. Okay? If I put that, then my change in the x was 1. My change in the y was negative 3 because it went down. And so my change in the y's over the change in the x would be the y's was negative 3 and the x's was 1. And so I got that. Well, that's not going to give you that. This actually equals negative 3. So that's not the same. So you got to figure out which one will give you 6 during the rate of change. And number 9, you can just figure out by the graph. What is the rate of change? Okay, like I said, on a graph, you can figure out by looking. We can usually find the slope, but so we haven't talked about slope. Rate of change, basically very similar or the same. Some people would say. But what you want to do is look for the point at x, where x is 1. What is y? And so if x is 1, if you go up, where is y? Okay, and so it's wherever y is at, that's my answer. And so I look close. When x is 1, what is y? And that's my answer right there. Well, it's not 3, it's not 2, it's right in between. And so what number is right in between? It's right there. Okay, hopefully you can see the answer there. Okay, so when x is 1, so I'll put there when x is 1, y is 2.5. Well, it's always the change in the y over the change in the x. So that means it would be 2.5 over 1, because this is your x variable and this is your y variable. And so, of course, the answer would be C. Okay, you can finish the rest. I have to go.